The story begins with a damned fool on all fours, fleeing. That fool is me. A petty thief named Enzo Ceccotti, being chased by the police through the narrow, chaotic streets of Rome. I'm no fancy criminal, just a crude, rough punk, but I know this city's underworld like the back of my hand. I used the crowds and tight alleys to lose them, making the cops sweat buckets just to keep up. Cornered, I had no choice but to take a risk, diving headfirst into the murky Tiber River. As the two officers peeked over the embankment, I held my breath and dived, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, they gave up and left, leaving me alone in the water. But as I tried to swim to shore, I made a fatal mistake. I accidentally kicked a barrel of radioactive waste and fell right into it. That thick, viscous liquid looked disgusting. I swallowed some of that toxic sludge, and my body started shaking uncontrollably. I crawled back to my rundown apartment, vomited my guts out, and collapsed, falling into a deep sleep. The next morning, something was different. I woke up with a bad feeling, but after showering and eating breakfast, I felt surprisingly revitalized. I suddenly coughed violently, but my body no longer ached, and I felt a new surge of strength. I intended to sell the designer watch I had just stolen to my friend Sergio, who lived right downstairs. However, Sergio wasn't home. Only his daughter, Alessia, was there. Alessia was a bit of an oddball. She had been in state custody since her mother passed away and was completely obsessed with a robot from a Japanese anime called Steel Jig. She carried the DVD of her favorite cartoon everywhere, and her room was plastered with drawings of giant robots. I found Sergio at the lair of a psychopathic mafia boss named Fabio Cannizaro, also known as the Giant. I had a hunch that this guy was mentally unstable after witnessing Fabio's volatile temper firsthand. Fabio flew into a rage simply because a subordinate had bought the wrong color hard drive, and in a horrifyingly brutal display, he beat the subordinate to death on the spot. Immediately after, Fabio pulled out a bottle of hand sanitizer and obsessively wiped his hands clean. That habit showed that this guy was no ordinary person. After the tense meeting, Sergio bought the watch for a paltry €100 and invited me to join him on a new venture. We went to an old mobile home park to conduct a drug deal with a rival gangster from the Camorra gang. The deal went sour when the other guy overdosed. Sergio refused to make the transaction, and the overdosed guy's brother snatched Sergio's gun. A brutal shootout ensued. Sergio was shot dead, but before he died, he managed to smash the head of his shooter against a pillar to drag him to his grave with him. I also took a bullet and was thrown out of a 9th-story window. I should have kicked the bucket, but unbelievably, I landed without a scratch. When I returned to the apartment building, I saw Alessia sitting on the stairs. She asked me where her father was, but I, still in shock from the shootout, ignored her and went straight to my room. I intended to bandage my gunshot wound and was completely shocked to discover it had completely healed. My body, once frail, had now become invincible. However, my first instinct was not to do good deeds. I just wanted to return to my old habits, like eating my favorite yogurt and watching adult films. My peaceful evening was interrupted by a persistent ringing of the doorbell. It was Alessia, still desperately searching for her father. In anger, I punched the metal door, but unbelievably, it created a hole with a deafening sound. Then, I tried moving a giant wardrobe, and it glided effortlessly across the room. Next, I bent iron bars as if they were made of butter. Realizing my newfound superhuman strength, I decided to put it to good use. Instead of becoming a hero, I used my powers to rip an ATM out of the bank wall. I used the cash to buy my favorite yogurt, a new DVD, and a bottle of baby oil. The ATM's anti-theft system had sprayed ink on the money, so I had to lay it out in the sun to dry, a peculiar scene, almost mocking the whole situation. Not long after, I heard Alessia scream. I looked down and saw she had been cornered by Fabio and his gang, who were trying to extract information about Sergio. I yelled down and told Alessia not to tell them anything, which angered Fabio, who slapped me and told me to get lost. The gang then entered Sergio's room to look for drugs, tearing the place apart. They accidentally touched Alessia's favorite cartoon DVD, and she went berserk, scratching Fabio and attacking his gang. Fabio was about to kill Alessia when I, now wearing a mask and a black coat to conceal my identity, burst through the window. I was like a hurricane, easily taking down gang members. But in the chaos, a gangster severed my toe. I tried to tape it back on, but to no avail. After the fight, Alessia saw all the money I'd stolen and said that superheroes must use their powers for good. With her father gone and her home raided, she had nowhere to go. She invited herself to stay at my apartment for the night. That night, I woke up to the sound of Alessia's DVD player still going while she was fast asleep. Her presence seemed to remind me that there was more to life than selfish desires. Later, I found a map hidden inside Sergio's display case. The next morning, I woke up to Alessio watching his adult movie collection and angrily turned it off. I looked at my severed pinky toe, sadly realizing it would never be reattached. I took Alessia to the orphanage where I grew up, intending to leave her there. Before saying goodbye, I promised to buy her a new princess dress, just like the one she always dreamed of. Alessia, with her childish innocence, started calling me Hiroshi Shiba, the hero of her favorite anime. At the same time, Fabio was in deep trouble. The Camorra boss, Nunzia, gave him an ultimatum: return the drug money or face the consequences. In his desperation, Fabio decided to rob an armored car expected to pass through a specific location. Coincidentally, the map I found in Sergio's display case pointed to that exact spot. Upon my arrival, Fabio and his gang were already prepared for the heist. But with my newfound powers, I easily got the money first and escaped with the loot, leaving Fabio empty-handed. Back at Fabio's lair, one of his goons, a hot-headed guy with authority issues, had had enough. He proposed borrowing money from a local drag queen named Marceloni to pay off the Camorra. Fabio, with an ego as big as his temper, went ballistic at the idea. He brutally unleashed his Rottweiler, which killed the guy on the spot. Meanwhile, with my newly acquired funds, I went on a shopping spree, buying a giant projector, expensive speakers, and even a complete Steel Geek DVD box set. I bought all of it because I started missing Alessia's rambling and realized I wanted to spend time with her. Not long after, 2 police officers showed up at my apartment. They had found Alessia wandering alone on the highway and brought her back to me. After they left, Alessia gave me a homemade superhero mask. Annoyed by the girl's persistent presence, I decided to take her back to the orphanage once more. But Alessia begged me to stay and watch her favorite cartoon with her. We sat and watched together, and as we sat side by side, Alessia gently took my hand. I reciprocated slowly, but the touch brought back a traumatic memory for Alessia. She had been sexually abused in the past, and she screamed, horrified by the touch. I, completely bewildered, tried to comfort her. Later, as Alessia kept asking about her father, I took her to the playground, and then to the mall to buy her the dress I had promised. After searching 3 different places, we found the perfect pink dress at a small anime store. Alessia was so happy that she invited me into the dressing room to show me herself wearing it. She then told me she loved me and kissed me. I, who had been trying to ignore my growing feelings for her, kissed her back, and we made love right then and there. But Alessia seemed to realize something. She felt that I was only with her out of lust and didn't care about her at all. On the way home, Alessia confronted me, blaming me for not being a hero and for not saving her father. In a moment of raw honesty, I finally told her the truth, that Sergio had been shot and killed. In extreme pain, Alessia boarded the tram at the stop. I, realizing my mistake, used my super strength to stop the moving tram with my bare hands. I chased after Alessia to apologize and convince her to come home with me. In my haste, I forgot to put on my mask. The people on the street, filming this insane scene, captured the true face of the new masked superhero. The video went viral, and I became a fugitive with a very real face. Suddenly, a bomb exploded on a nearby street, and I quickly scooped up Alessia and ran to safety. I took her to a cemetery, where we found Sergio's body. As Alessia cried, I tried to comfort her. At the same time, Fabio went to see the drag queen Marceloni to borrow money. But Nunzia and her men had been tracking him. A chaotic shootout ensued. Marcelone was shot, and Nunzia, not satisfied with just shooting the drag queen, began taunting Fabio, as if she were about to burn him alive. But Marceloni, not dead yet, grabbed a gun and started shooting. Nunzia managed to escape. Fabio, taking advantage of the chaos, grabbed his handgun and shot Marceloni dead before fleeing. When Fabio returned to his lair, he discovered that Nunzia had eliminated all his men. Only one member of his gang was left alive. Watching the news, Fabio saw that my face, that of the self-proclaimed, quote, supervillain, had now become a viral phenomenon. Enraged by his failure and jealous of my new fame, Fabio swore to find me and steal my powers for himself. Meanwhile, I had taken Alessia to a motel to hide from the police. I finally opened up to her about my past. I told her about my sinful life and all my young, drug-addicted friends who had died tragically. I also explained to her how Sergio had died. This was a turning point for me. I had always been closed off, but for the first time, I became vulnerable. Alessia, seeing a new side of me, asked if I could sleep in her bed to comfort her. Just as we were about to sleep, Fabio and his gang members burst in. Fabio shot me with a tranquilizer dart, and I collapsed while they took Alessia away. When I woke up, I was tied tightly to the bed. Fabio, trying to figure out the secret of my powers, was watching me. I offered him money to let me go, but Fabio refused, as he only wanted my powers. Fabio's patience ran out, and he demanded I take him to the source of my powers. With Alessia's life at risk, I had no choice but to comply. I took him back to the Tiber River. Fabio, with a condescending tone, laughed at the idea that bathing in the river could give him powers. He told me to retrieve the barrel of radioactive waste from the bottom of the river. At the same time, Fabio's men were preparing to rape Alessia, who was in the car. But before he could do anything, Nunzia and her men arrived. In a panic, Fabio grabbed Alessia and used her as a human shield. But Nunzia and her men didn't care. They shot Fabio, hitting both him and Alessia with a volley of bullets. Unsatisfied, Nunzia set Fabio on fire, and he fell into the river, screaming in agony as his body was consumed by flames. Alessia was hit by a stray bullet and died. As she was dying in my arms, she told me to become Hero Jig and save people. It turned out Fabio didn't die. He ingested a lot of radioactive waste when he was set on fire and submerged in the river, and it resurrected him with superpowers identical to mine. With a new wig to cover his burned head, he immediately began a massacre. He tracked Nunzia to her headquarters, slaughtered her men, and killed her himself, all recorded on phone. Then he found a secret arsenal and stole a giant bomb. With a grand plan outlined, Fabio was ready to make a seismic statement. Meanwhile, I was completely broken. Alessia's death had destroyed me, and I wandered the streets, lost in sorrow. The police saw me and, recognizing me from the viral video, approached to arrest me. I didn't resist, but as the police surrounded me, a car with a mother and daughter swerved to avoid hitting me. The car crashed, and the daughter was trapped inside as it began to catch fire. For a moment, I remembered Alessia's words. A hero must help everyone. I ran to the car, and mere seconds before it exploded, I saved her life. I finally understood the joy of helping others. The police, stunned by my heroic act, backed away and let me go. Later, while watching TV, I saw that Fabio had posted a video of his massacre, stating he would create a massive explosion. I, with a premonition, knew exactly what the target was. It was the stadium where a derby was taking place. I snatched a scooter from a delivery man and raced to the stadium. Now I fully embraced the role of a hero. I was a real-life Hiroshi Shiba. My premonition was correct. Fabio had stolen an ambulance, packed it with explosives, and driven it to the stadium. I found him and, without wasting a second, attacked. We engaged in a fierce battle, and I knocked the bomb's detonator out of Fabio's hand. But Fabio, always one step ahead, manually activated the bomb's timer and fled. With less than 2 minutes left on the clock, I jumped into the ambulance and drove it away, hoping to get it to safety. But the police, still unaware of the bomb, tried to stop me. I, in a moment of determination, got out of the car, pushed it with my super strength, and sprinted to the nearest bridge. But as I prepared to throw the bomb into the river, Fabio ambushed me again. We had one final fight, and I was beaten to a pulp. Fabio sped up the bomb's timer to just 15 seconds and left me to die. But I, refusing to give up, threw the bomb off the bridge with me and Fabio, just as it exploded. The explosion destroyed the bridge but saved countless lives. Fabio died in the blast, his head blown off and landing on the bridge. Fortunately, I survived the explosion. In the end, my heroic act spread, and all my past sins were forgiven. I sacrificed myself to save the city, and everyone now sees me as a hero. I continued to protect the city, wearing the mask Alessia gave me, and lived up to the name Steel Jig. My story ends here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching until the end, and see you next time.